Hello everyone, welcome to Behind the Scenes, and this is a bonus episode featuring Eric Stewart. Hope you all enjoy.
And it was kind of hard, but
it is the mechanics of it that if you learn something
about YMC radio. I hope you all enjoy.
Harmony and rhythm, and conjuring them, imagining them in your head, and then writing them down and hearing them and making a piece of music. So,
art as something that you might encounter in your daily.
No, they're coming.
I am here with Eric Stewart, who is a film director and also a professor for communications and art. It's good to see you again.
Nice to see you, Matthew. Thank you.
How's life been?
Life's been good, yeah. Fall is always enjoyable.
Fall is one of my favorite seasons, but I like spring better.
Really? What do you like about spring?
I like the warmth that they have.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely getting colder out there.
Yesterday felt like winter.
It was very cold yesterday.
My first question is, who inspired you to become a film director?
So, I first started working with film in Chicago, and there was about 3 local filmmakers there, or 3 filmmakers who were based in Chicago at the time. Deborah Stratman, Bill Brown, and Thomas Comerford. And Tom was a teacher of mine who introduced me to the work of the other 2. And they collaborated a lot, but they also made work in their own right. And it was really, really kind of getting to know Tom and getting to know the work of Deborah and Bill that I got really interested in film and really like documentary and nonfiction filmmaking. That would have been when I was 18, during my first year of college. So yeah, I originally went to school for painting and drawing, but really quickly kind of gravitated towards filmmaking, and I've been doing that ever since. So I don't know if it's going good, but it's continued. First 10 of those were pretty, I was really learning by working on set. And was working on my own films, but I would say I didn't start becoming proud of the work that I was doing until even just like 7 years ago.
You said you make documentaries?
Yeah, I personally make work that I would describe as nonfiction, and I'm an experimental filmmaker, so I tend to make short films, and my films kind of, people feel very comfortable referring to them as experimental films. I feel comfortable referring to them as nonfiction. And a lot of them, when you look at them, documentary might not be the first that comes to mind. But yeah, I make experimental nonfiction films. So I don't usually work in groups on my own films, but I oftentimes will be brought in to work on other people's crews or be hired by other people to do editing or other post-production stuff. But eventually, I think in the future, I'm interested in making a more, like a more straightforward fiction film that would require a crew.
What types of challenges do you face when you make these films?
So I make films that are a little different than maybe what we might see either in the theater or streaming. I make films by myself for the most part, and I tend to make them for me. I'm not super concerned about the audience per se. I mean, it's like my own personal thing. And so because it's kind of outside of that mainstream way of making films, there are fewer ways to finance them. So sometimes just getting, film is expensive. Even, I work with 16 millimeter film. That's really expensive. Even video is expensive. Like it's an intense process. Even if it's just time, right? Even just having time away from work is something that you have to pay for. So that's a little bit something that's challenging in terms of the way that I work. But I'm also slow. I'm a very slow filmmaker because I make them for me. And oftentimes I don't know what I'm doing when I start. So I'll spend maybe that's why it took me 10 years before I could stand behind my films, because it takes me about 10 years or so from just an idea to having a film. I'm super slow, but mostly for work that I feel comfortable saying that's my work, I very, very, very rarely work with other people.
What steps did it take you to get up to your film director career?
Well, so if I just, I went to undergrad. After that, moved out to the Bay Area, really because there were some filmmakers out there that I wanted to get to know. And, there's opportunities for filmmaking anywhere. You don't have to move to California or New York to do that. But there were some people I wanted to work with who lived in the Bay Area who were super influential to me. And that was a really important part of, I would say, my evolution as a filmmaker. And then when I was approaching 30, I decided to go to grad school in Boulder, Colorado, for filmmaking. And that was for a couple reasons. There were some filmmakers there who I wanted to kind of learn from. And they also gave me the opportunity to sort of make money and teach while I was doing my master's. So that was kind of a big moment, that was probably the biggest moment in my filmmaking career, mostly because my films really kind of took off and started getting shown then, and then after that. But that's sort of my personal nuts and bolts, kind of step by step of what happened, but really more generically, what it took for me to turn filmmaking from something that I was interested in to filmmaking being something that defined my life was really just committing to it. Especially early in my 20s, after undergrad, it was really just deciding that being comfortable with being very poor, because I really, until I could make films that I was proud of, just committing to being uncomfortable until really my life revolved around film.
And what skills do you have that you use for your directing films?
So in terms of concrete skills, there's what I do with a camera, and there's what I do with audio recorders, or there's what I do with video, camera technology, and there's what I do with audio technology. That is, there's a lot there to sort of know, and then there's a lot to know about editing and kind of post-production stuff. That's all sort of concrete skills. Pretty much anyone can learn that stuff just by doing it I'm going to say like there's nothing special about it, right? It's just something you do over and over and over. And then your brain sort of changes and you kind of see the world in a different way and you listen to the world in a different way because you've become like really accustomed to seeing and hearing it through a camera and a microphone. And you start thinking like a camera. That's like weird. That's like a really weird thing to say, but you become more like it than it becomes like you, for sure. But in terms of softer skills, it's like, oh, like how do I render what's in here to something that people see and hear at the same time? That is something that is really, really hard to teach people. Ultimately, it's something that people have to learn on their own. The stuff with the camera and the stuff with the microphone, anyone can learn and anyone can teach. The other stuff, how you turn this into this, I'm not even convinced that it can be taught.
Do you have any advice to give to young artists who want to become film directors?
Yeah, so like, I'll just reinforce maybe the 2 points I made. You don't have to move to LA or New York. It is really exciting. The world now is much more, and I mean world, like you don't even have to stay in the States. And then really just kind of committing to it. Like if filmmaking is something that you want to do, it's going to be hard for a long time. Like some people, it really doesn't start paying off until they're in their later parts of their life. I mean, really, this is just true of anyone who wants to work in a creative field. People don't do it for the money, because there isn't much. There isn't. And, like you can get by for sure. You can make a life out of it, definitely. But it takes some time to get there. And if a year or two of living uncomfortably, to make you want to quit, I don't know. So you have to be willing to commit even when it's hard. And the moment when it looks like it's going to be easy looks really, really far away. Yeah, you have to be able to kind of persevere through all of that. It's going to be like a decade of kind of learning in the industry or wherever, just learning by doing before you really kind of mature into mature work.
And do you have any most memorable moments directing these films?
I love, all right, so like I love, I'm my happiest sitting behind a camera and watching something like play out. Because there's this sort of like, you have to put like your thoughts, those have to like go away, and you just have to be totally present through the camera and not thinking about what you want to capture or what you think somebody else wants you to photograph. You're just thinking about light falling across surfaces and the surfaces going in motion. So I get those are like my happiest memories, is just kind of like being behind a camera. I would say if I had to pick out like one moment in time that happened, I was in London at Kew Gardens filming a greenhouse. I like to make films about plants. I'm not super interested in people. So I was filming this greenhouse, and I was kind of doing a medium shot of just all the panels, right, on a greenhouse. And I was filming it on a Bolex, which is like a 16 millimeter camera that you have to crank, or you have to wind it, and then it goes. You only get 3 minutes of film total, and you can only shoot in 30-second chunks. That's how much is on a wind of film. It's my favorite way to photograph. It's like my tool of choice, but it's really, really restrictive and demanding. So I was filming this greenhouse, and an airplane was flying by, and suddenly just like its reflection kind of rippled across the panes of glass in the greenhouse. And I was making a film about plants that were collected in the 18th century. I was like, what do I need an airplane for? They didn't have airplanes in the 1840s. But it was this really kind of beautiful moment that like I never could have planned in any other 30-second interval of existence. You know, that's not necessarily possible. So I love those kind of moments where the film gods kind of smile upon you, and you know, everything is just everything happens, and those moments are rare. But that's probably that's just something that popped in my head, and I could tell you about one specific moment, but yeah.
Well, thank you for this lovely interview.
Thank you, Matthew. It's my pleasure.
Well, that's all we have. Thanks for watching this bonus episode. Check out more episodes on Voices TV and Exploded Chicken's YouTube channel.